Hello and welcome again to today's episode of Curious Austrian Tours. Now today I'm going to be speaking about one of my favorite objects at the British Museum here in London. It is the Rosetta Stone. Now, why is it called Rosetta Stone? It is called Rosetta Stone because it was discovered in a town called Rosetta, which is Rashid. The Rosetta Stone was carved in 196 BC. What does the Rosetta Stone say? Rosetta Stone is a text written by a group of priests in Egypt to honor the Egyptian pharaoh. It lists all of the things that the pharaoh has done that are good for the priests and the people of Egypt. But the stone itself is historically incredibly important. It allowed us for the first time to be able to understand, to be able to read, and to be able to translate hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics was the written language of ancient Egyptians. And until the mid-19th century, we really didn't know what it said. The language itself is pictorial, and actually that led to one of the real confusions because they think that early archaeologists and linguists believed that the pictures they could see, you can make out birds and snakes and various different kinds of forms, referred in some way to a specific thing in the world. So if you saw a bird, it somehow referred to a bird. And in fact, that's not the case. This is far more sophisticated, and the Rosetta Stone was really what helped them to understand that Egyptian hieroglyphics are not pictorial, they're not pictographs, they're phonetic. So all those things that look like pictures actually represent sounds, and that's how they were able to finally figure out and translate ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. And the reason we were able to do that is because this stone said the same statement 3 times in 3 different languages. The 3 languages are Ancient Greek, which is down at the bottom. That was the language of the administration. That was the language of government. And the reason for that is because Alexander the Great had conquered Egypt and had set up his sort of Greek rule in his Hellenistic era, which was actually between the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC and the emergence of the Roman Empire, signified by the Battle of Actium in 31 BC. In ancient Greek, it's called Hellas, which stands for Greece. Now let's remember, we're talking about 200 BC here, which is actually getting close to the end of the life of hieroglyphics as well. It would last for another few hundred years before it died out completely. This is really the tail end of this 300-year-old language. The middle section is Demotic, which means the language of the people, and it was this common language used by Egyptians. And the top was the sacred writing. This was hieroglyphs, and that was the language that we really couldn't read. The Rosetta Stone was written in all 3 scripts so that the priests, government officials and rulers of Egypt could read what it said. Until we had the Rosetta Stone and we could see within the writings of the Rosetta Stone cartouches, which held the names of rulers. Cartouches are a kind of oblong shape that contains the name of the ruler. In this case, that would be Ptolemy V. They were a Greek dynasty after Alexander the Great. Cleopatra, the last of the Ptolemies, committed suicide, and by recognizing that the ruler's name in these 3 different languages, we found a way to begin to unlock hieroglyphics. That would take decades. It was an incredibly difficult task, and we haven't even talked yet about how this was found. Napoleon, who was one of the most celebrated personages in the history of the West, he revolutionized military organization and training, sponsored the Napoleonic Code, the prototype of later civil law codes, reorganized education and so forth. Now, Napoleon has his army in Egypt. The Rosetta Stone was found in 1799 in Rashid, in Nile Delta. A French soldier named Pierre-François Bouchard found it during the Napoleonic campaign in Egypt. It was being used as part of the foundation of a fort. In fact, it would have been originally erected in a temple or near an ancient Egyptian temple. And I suppose it's important to say that this is the bottom portion of a much larger stele, or sort of stone tablet that would have been quite tall. Meanwhile, British troops defeated the French in Egypt in 1801, and the original stone came into British possession under the capitulation of Alexandria and was transported to London. It has been on public display at the British Museum almost continuously since 1802. Now you might wonder who deciphered hieroglyphs. Many people worked on deciphering hieroglyphs over several hundred years. However, the structure of the script was very difficult to work out. After many years of studying the Rosetta Stone and other examples of ancient Egyptian writing, Jean-François Champollion deciphered hieroglyphs in 1822. The Englishman Thomas Young didn't crack the code entirely. The Frenchman Jean cracked code. All symbols were phonetics, some were grammatical genders, etc. He is considered the true decipherer of hieroglyphs. How did Champollion decipher hieroglyphs? Champollion could read both Greek and Coptic. They were an ethno-religious group that primarily inhabit the area of modern Egypt, where they are the largest Christian denomination. He was able to figure out what the 7 demotic signs in Coptic were. By looking at how these signs were used in Coptic, he was able to work out what they stood for. Then he began tracing these demotic signs back to hieroglyphic signs. What's interesting, that the back of the stone is quite rough. It would have also stood on a wall in a courtyard. Alright, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I look forward to welcoming you back again. Cheerio!